All right, cool. So y'all are tuned into the Third Eye Samurai Metaphysics podcast, where we're going to be talking about all things metaphysics. And you can catch us on YouTube if you want to see the video version of this and you're listening to the audio. But if you're watching the video and you want to listen to the audio, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. And I'm here, as always, with Jason, the Blue Moon, and Neptune. And we're going to be talking about astrology. Yo, what's up, man? We're going to be talking about astrology, and I wanted to start off by reading something from this book called The Exquisite Zodiac. The Exquisite Zodiac. I don't know who the author is, but it'll be in the show notes, so you can check below. And then after that, we're going to have an astrology reading for this time, which some really interesting stuff is happening. Something like completely unique, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't happened. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. Apparently, it's a rare occasion, so that should be interesting. And then we're going to get into the basics of astrology. So if you're new to astrology, this is a perfect place to be tuning in. This quote is probably more catered towards the newer or more skeptical people for astrology, which is why I wanted to read it in the beginning. And I actually am pretty new to the subject. I was very skeptical to begin with. Then I started to see that, there's something going on here, and I became curious. And the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm realizing, like, there's something going down. And Jason over here has been, like, the main guy who's been kind of helping me navigate those waters. So I'm sure you guys are going to learn a lot. So to get into the quote, okay? Many followers of astrology are labeled as unrealistic or escapist. It's not that they want to escape reality, as many incorrectly think. They are simply reaching for understanding of what makes them tick. Many people just can't see how astrology works and won't give it any consideration. Let me say this up front. I completely understand anyone who doesn't believe in this subject. After all, why should you believe in it, unless you've studied it? Until its validity has been proven to you by a reputable astrologer, and I will add, or your own experiences, the value of this science would probably slip under the radar of your daily focus. Fortunately, however, there are many folks out there who intuit that astrology simply works, that there is something to it. Hardly anyone knows how, it just does. And I kind of want to get into how, hopefully, and maybe not in this podcast, but in future episodes. Like, that's something that really interests me, because it is a subject that not too many people seem to be talking about. Explaining how astrology works is extremely complicated. As above, so below is the best explanation I can give you. The universal force that is the source of your being is one and the same as the clockwork energies that move the planet and all things. All things are connected and in sync. Basically, all an astrologer does is read the clock hands, that is, the planetary positions. Both planets and people have the same basic harmonic rhythms. This is a topic far beyond the scope of this book, but it is important at least to mention. So he did actually tell a little bit of how it works. And so Jason over here is going to be telling us a little bit about the clockwork, what's happening between the dates of May 8th and May 17th. That's 2019 if you're listening to this years later, which is kind of cool. So yeah, man, what's going on? What's this Mercury meets Uranus in Taurus? All right, that doesn't mean anything to me. Break it down.
Currently on, I want to say May 4th, Mercury met Uranus, or May 8th, Mercury met Uranus for the first time in Taurus since May 4th in 1942. So basically, Mercury is how you think about things, how you process things, how you understand things, and Uranus is like new ideas, a rebellious energy. Uranus wants to destroy something and make something better, right? Uranus is a higher octave of Saturn, because Saturn and Uranus both rule Aquarius, and Capricorn is ruled by just Saturn. Now, Capricorns love to build things with strong foundations. That's what they're big on. But Aquarius love to build something unique. So Aquarius will tear something totally down to build something that does the same thing but better in a unique way, right? So Mercury, the clever one. Yeah, Mercury's the clever one. Mercury is the planner. Mercury is where you get the information, how you carry out the plan. So when Mercury comes and meets Uranus in any type of situation, you're going to be coming up with new ideas, new information, new plans, new energy to rebel against things. You might feel the need to do something original, right? Now, what's interesting is Uranus is in Taurus for the first time in like forever, and so since like
you're saying
the night, like
1942, is that what you're so like 60 years or whatever, somewhere around there?
something around there. And Uranus was met with Mercury on May 4th, 1942, right? So when I say new ideas, new things you never seen before, during that time, May 4th, 1942, we had the battle on the Coral Sea, which was the first Navy battle that was fought solely in the air, which is crazy, right? Like the first time we had air warfare was happening the day Mercury met Uranus in Taurus, right?
So you're saying like that's like a new idea, is what you're saying?
Mhm.
Like when Mercury gets into Taurus, there's gonna
Right.
be and it's gonna is this have to do with Uranus, that like kind of violent tearing something down and building it up?
Yeah, because
I'm trying to. Mhm.
Uranus is a very rebellious energy, right? Uranus just doesn't care. It just wants to like destroy things so it can make it in its vision, right? And
Mm.
Mercury's all about creation and stuff like that. So when they meet, it's a very rebellious energy, and let's talk about the fact that they're meeting in the sign of Taurus, right? Taurus is the ultimate sign for Earth. It's the manifestation sign. It's the sign that's gets the actual job done when the Capricorn comes up with the information. Tauruses are great at manifestation on the
Mm.
physical, right? So during this time, people are forced almost, like I'm sure people can resonate with this, where they're looking at their life, their reality, and seeing that certain things have to change, or feeling the energy that they have to make changes because what's used to work is no longer working, right? So people are getting more information to go about their new life. Now, typically, the information is going to be so unique that it could scare a lot of people. But this isn't a time to be scared. This is a time to ground it and construct it and plan it with Mercury, so Uranus can build something beautiful that's never been seen before. So anyone getting new ideas to do new things, even though it may seem more unorthodox, this is exactly what it's supposed to feel like. It's supposed to be unique to the point where no one's seen it before. And the people being the most unique at this time, just Uranus being in Taurus, are going to be doing the best. So yeah, this is just a time to catch those new downloads, ground the energy, and construct a beautiful plan to carry out something that you've never done before.
Man, I'm feeling that hardcore. We've talked about this, and I won't get into my personal experience in this because it's a little bit beyond the scope of this podcast. I want to stay on topic, but definitely feeling that the needs that grounding energy because things are like new stuff is coming up, and it's pretty powerful and hard to ignore.
Mm,
So just to kind of reiterate, basically we got Mercury and Uranus on the same sign, which is
mm,
Taurus, and that
correct.
Mercury energy, which is the mental, new ideas, thinking, versus and meeting the Uranus, which is kind of revolutionary or like tearing something down to
Right.
build something new, almost like a violent recreation, which is definitely what
Correct.
I'm feeling. Like it's not a smooth flow. I've been like actively doing things to ground myself every day, and I feel like ungrounded the next day, and then I ground myself again, and it's slowly getting better. And I think that has to do with the moon, like we talked about in the last. If it was in the last podcast, or maybe it was a personal conversation. But anyway, so we've got the Mercury and Uranus, that's that energy. And then Taurus, the fact that it's in the constellation of Taurus, is that's going to give it the energy to actually manifest in the physical world as like
Like,
something like concrete and real,
right. Yep.
as
Exactly.
opposed to just like a mental idea or something like that. Is
Yeah, like if Uranus was meeting, or if Mercury was meeting Uranus in Aries, it would give you a flood of ideas, or you know, new ideas and perspectives on things. But the fact that it's meeting in Taurus is implying that not only are you supposed to get the new idea, but you're supposed to carry out the new idea. So
uh,
yeah,
perfect.
and I should mention too, guys, like it is Saturn retrograde and will be Saturn retrograde to September, what she talked about last time, so I won't go too far into that. But this is more of a planning period, not really about like taking crazy action on things unless you're really grounded and really know what you're trying to do.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sure everyone listening knows exactly what, like, that one idea or whatever they had that, they know what you're talking about. Because, like, when you're talking, I know exactly what it's relating to in my life. And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
like the proof in the pudding or whatever when it comes to astrology. It's like no one's
Mm,
going to ever be able to, like, take a microscope and see astrology, or like suck it up in a syringe, you know? That's the whole point of metaphysical stuff, is you can't study it using the physical senses. And
Right.
but like the way you can kind of determine for yourself, I think, whether there's merit, whether there's truth in an idea, is trying to objectively look at, like, is that true of my world? And also try not to be biased and say, like, I want it to be true, but just like, is it or isn't it, you know? And kind of and that's also how I feel like you would be able to discern, you know, someone who really knows their astrology stuff versus like a faker, or these like shallow kind of magazine like tidbits or whatever. Horoscopes, exactly. All right, cool. So this is great. So astrology isn't really horoscopes then. So let's start to get into what it is. And you pulled up the dictionary definition, so I'm going to read that, and then I want to hear what your definition or interpretation is. So the astrology definition that you could find online would be something like the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies interpreted as having an influence on human affairs and the natural world. So kind of like the as above, so below, the clockwork of the universe matching the clockwork inside, which you've already like mentioned a little bit. It's like you are telling me what's happening in the universe with Taurus and the stars and with Taurus, specifically with Uranus, Mercury, and Taurus. But what's happening out in the universe, and you're saying the same thing's going to happen inside of you. So that's an interesting parallel. So yeah, what is your definition of astrology?
I wrote it down. So my definition would be astrology is an interpretation of the stars that allow us to measure the current cosmic weather happening in our solar system.
Ooh, I like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cosmic weather. Yeah, it's true, because there are weather patterns, and knowing the weather is definitely important. Like, you plan your day around if it's going to rain or if it's sunny. That depends on if you're going to go to the beach or what, you know, so what you're going to wear, stuff like that. So knowing the cosmic weather is going to help you plan your metaphysical day, your internal world, your internal life more, and external.
Exactly, because like to emphasize what that means a little bit more is like basically if the energy in our solar system is an aggressive one, right? Then we might feel the need to be a little bit more aggressive or compulsive, right? So if you know that there's a very aggressive energy happening, then you would know the weather, and then you would know not to turn up or be too extreme during this time, or also be playing right into the cosmic weather. Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's like, this happened years ago, and this was one of my first introductions, or a little like, oh, there's something to this astrology thing, is I used to deal with chronic depression, and it would always get worse around the full moon. But I didn't realize that for the longest time. So like at least like once a month, basically, I would start like flipping out and being like, oh, I hate this person, or why did this person look at me funny? Like little things. It would always be slights, you know? And I was like, why am I so caught up on these details? Or I would make something up like, I think this person is thinking this of me or whatever, but I don't really know because I'm not asking or anything like that. And then once I realized like, oh, whenever the full moon comes, like I just get really emotional and like upset and worked up. That's my like reaction, like there's some kind of connection there. And once I realized that, I was able to, whenever I would start feeling all worked up and stuff, notice those thoughts coming, check the moon. And if it's near a full moon or a full moon, I'd be like, all right, you know, like just chill. You don't have to make this bigger than it is. It's just like, you're just feeling these feelings. It's not actually coming from a real thing. So that's like one really huge practical benefit. And that was even before I knew about astrology or anything. I just studied like lunacy. The word lunacy and lunatic comes from Luna, the moon. Because back in the day, they knew about this. Like people would flip out during the full moon, and that would be the time when like someone might commit a crime, like, or do something really uncharacteristic, and you could actually plead lunacy in court and like get off with a lighter sentence because of the full moon, because they genuinely like understood and accepted that this was a real phenomenon. So that's crazy. But now that's just one planet. So imagine like all these other astral bodies and all the different things going on there. Like, exactly. That's kind of intense, man. So how do you even like step into that? You know, like how did you even get started?
Well, I won't go too far into that, but like basically, like I was trying to understand myself during this time, right? I was like I always felt a lot of different things growing up that seemed a little weird. Like for instance, my being empathic and stuff like that. So like when I got older, I started like really like questioning like who I was and like why I was the way I was. And I would ask like my family and stuff like that, but I wasn't really getting the answers that I that was like really like doing it for me.
Hmm.
So somewhere around that journey of trying to figure out, like the point of life and all that good stuff, I went across, my Pisces information. I'm a Pisces, and I started reading about it, and I was like, "What? This is insane!" Like almost everything that this entire article is saying, I resonate with like deeply, to the point where it was like weird. I was like, this is too accurate. Like, that's strange. And so like,
Yeah.
and I'm super Pisces. So when I read about it, I have a stellium in Pisces. When I read about it, like it was really hitting me. So then as a Pisces, Pisces want to learn everything at like the deepest level, the core, really fully understand it. So I was started doing research, and I was like, man, like how do they know this? I wasn't just going to read it and be like, that's that. So I started doing research on it, and then I discovered that, you have a birth chart, and then on that birth chart, you have where all the planets were, not just the sun that was in Pisces. I found out that I had the moon in Pisces, I had Mercury in Pisces, I had the North Node in Pisces, and so
Mm.
on. And then I have obviously planets in other positions. So I wanted to,
So,
after I saw, go ahead.
oh yeah, you were just reading about your sun sign when you first found the Pisces thing. You were like, oh, like, someone told you like, what month are you born in or whatever, and you're like, yeah,
Right.
you're a Pisces. Okay, so what is a
Yeah.
Pisces? Is that kind of like how it started? And
Kind of. Yeah.
it,
Exactly.
okay, because that's
Mm.
like I think that's most people's introductions is that like you find out what your sun sign is, and they just say that is you, and I think that's actually a huge like disservice because
Yes.
it makes astrology be like, oh, so there's only 12 personality types, and like
Yeah.
everyone born in my month is going to be very, very, very similar to me. Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
seem like a
And that's,
realistic
uh huh.
understanding. Yeah. So,
You're
so yeah,
completely
so then when
right.
you
Like,
looked up the Pisces thing, you found out that like probably it resonated even more with you because you had so many things in Pisces.
right, right. So I got
But
I
then when
got
you,
lucky because
yeah,
some people will read their sun sign, right, and not
uh
realize
huh,
that it's just the sun sign. We have all these other
yeah,
planets too. So like some people will read sun sign, they're like, huh, this doesn't really sound like me, or it kind of sounds like me, but like I'm not like that fully, right? And it's
yeah.
because your other signs are different. Okay,
Hmm.
like if I was like for instance, like if I have a Pisces sun sign, but let's say I have a Aries rising sign, and Aries is a very energetic, charged up, strong sign, and Pisces more on like the softer side, right? With the Aries rising, which controls your personality and how you project yourself, with my Pisces, I would be aggressive about it. So when I got sensitive about something, I would get angry or an attack, and so I would read Pisces stuff, and I'd probably want to sound that much like a Pisces because my Aries energy is like taking over all the time. So lucky for me, I sounded a lot like a Pisces because I have a lot of things with Pisces. But people have to be careful of just reading their sun sign because you got to put the whole chart together. The sun just controls kind of like your ego, what you're consciously aware of. But what about your moon? Your moon's like your emotions. Your rising sign's like your personality. Your Venus is your definition of love. Your Mars is how you take action on things. Your Mercury is how you process things, right? So there's so much
Yeah.
to know about the planets and your chart other than just the sun sign.
Yeah, no, that's definitely so my thing. So I have my sun in Cancer, and like my rising and moon are both Sagittarius. So like
Mm-hmm.
when I read about Cancer, I think what happened to me was it's similar but different in that like a lot of people see me, I think, more on the Sagittarius side of things because I can be very like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that kind of outgoing energy, fiery and very excitable and
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
thinking a lot and philosophizing. A little bit different than the Cancer, but the Cancer is my sun sign. So when I read about Cancer, I was like, it would talk about like things about like home and family, and I was like, yes, like that's like it was weird because in a weird way it was like the fact that it knew something about me that other people didn't perceive as much because I'm like
Mm-hmm.
very much like, and it's really, this is like I have a lot of contradictions in me, and one of the things that astrology helped me realize is like what those contradictions are more specifically, and like I guess
Right.
why, maybe not why they're there, but like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like help me organize and understand it. Because for one thing, I'm very much like like travel, like see the world. Not like okay, I've kind of done that in my youth, but like like adventures, like a longing for like a great quest and adventure, you know. But then also another huge strong side of myself is just like, I like to stay at home. I like the comfort of home. I don't want to leave my home. So there's always like this thing in the back of my mind. I'm like, one day I'm gonna go on some really epic quest. But until then, I'm going to chill at home where I'm happy. And then, like, just knowing that about Cancer and the Sagittarius and which planets represent each of those, and where I'm like, oh, that explains it perfectly. Because emotionally, I want to go on these journeys, but, like, there's a lot of energy and, like, basic, the fire, the sun sign is putting a lot of energy into me wanting to just chill at home and create a stable like family environment and all that stuff. I'm saying that like for someone who is new to astrology or hasn't even checked their birth chart or their natal chart or anything like that, I thought it might be a little bit too like too much to get your whole birth chart, because you'll just be like, what is this? And then you're reading all these little tiny things, like it's too crazy. So I was thinking like it might be good if you're interested in trying to like dip your toes, is just to check out your sun sign and your moon sign. And that'll give you like, the sun is what you're like what's supercharging your life, like what kind of gives a lot of energy, maybe your default, and then the moon is your like emotional internal motivations.
Right.
What do you think about that
I like
idea?
That. No, I like that. Starting with the moon and the sun it would be a great place for everyone to start. The sun is going to tell you a lot about your egos, what you're consciously aware of, how your programs work.
Ego. Perfect. Yeah. That's what I always wonder. Like, what's the sun? That's the ego, the outwards, how you, your persona, how you interact and like express yourself to the world. While the moon is
your emotional reaction to things. So it's your feeling you have, right? So your sun tells you to, go to work every day, right? But it's your moon that's like saying to you, oh, I need to do this so I can feel good about myself. I need to make money. You see what I'm saying? The sun is telling you the program, but the moon is giving you the motivation to push the program. You see what I'm saying?
And I could see something where even it could contradict, where it's like the sun is telling me to go to work, but the moon is telling me I should go like live on a mountainside and be a hermit or something. Like,
exactly.
That kind of thing. Like it might explain, it'll either, depending on if they work together or contradict each other, that'll be a whole different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people will have a contradiction between their moon and sun sign. So they'll do things that their sun will tell them to take action on things that doesn't make their emotions feel good about. And then people will wonder like, why do I keep doing this to myself? You know what I'm saying? And that could be part of it. Or sometimes what happens to people, since the moon is in a certain place and the sun is in a certain place, right? The moon will say, okay, someone's hurting. I want them to feel better, right? But then the sun may be in a placement where it doesn't really agree with your moon. So the way you want to make someone feel better just doesn't come off the way your moon thought it would come off or wanted it to come off because of that contradiction. You see what I'm saying?
It's like intention versus action almost.
Exactly. I like that. That's beautiful. That's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
That really and it felt right to me too. I was like, oh, it clicked. That was the one that makes the moon is your intention, the sun is your action.
Right.
And sometimes they won't match up, sometimes they will. But so this is really good. So we've been getting into like already what the two main uses, you outlined two main uses, which seems really like, I like that it's clean and makes a lot of sense for what you could use astrology for. And you said in here in the show notes that you gave me, you said that we can use astrology to better navigate our energies through life. So that's a really overall term with like idea that I think is very universal. Right. And then within that, there's the navigating, like it's basically, I'm seeing it as your internal world. So you can learn more about yourself, who you are and everything like that. And then the external world is the other side of things. You can learn what energies are out there in the world, what's kind of likely to happen, where things are moving, what other people might be more likely to feel or act or do in this time because of the alignment of the planets and everything like that. So there's like that internal world and that external world. Is that a good breakdown, do you think?
No, I love that. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start off with the internal world. Understanding who you are on a metaphysical level is how you put it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So when we look at astrology, let's just use, let's say you're a Libra. Okay. So your sun sign is in Libra and your moon sign is in Libra. So keep it simple. So how is that going to affect you internally, right? All Libras, that's the relationship sign. I'm trying to keep it really simple. Libras care about relationships, right? So A lot. They are the relationship sign. So when you internally, as a Libra, you tend to not feel good about yourself unless you're in a relationship, or and let's say you are in a relationship, you're not going to feel good unless it's a healthy, harmonious relationship. Because Libras need to be, they want to be with someone. They don't need to be with someone. They want to be with someone very badly. They have a strong desire for it. And then another thing that Libras represent is they're the halfway point at the zodiac, right? So they represent the scales. All right. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Libras need to feel balanced. They need to feel stable. If they feel like things are out of balance in almost any way, that could be their mental state, that could be their body, that could be you know, anything as far as like
Like what's going on in the world, injustices and stuff like that.
exactly, that's going to affect their internal world. You see what I mean? As a Libra. Now, and Aries doesn't care really about any of that stuff. And we're just talking strictly a sign here. I mean, it all matters. Like, all because you're Aries doesn't mean you don't care about relationships because you have all these other placements. But typically, the Aries person, they're focusing internally about themselves, what they want, what their goal is. That's why the sun does best in Aries, because in the sun gets to really go out in the world and take action on exactly what it wants to do. So the Aries individual, which is opposite of a Libra, is thinking of itself. And Aries doesn't feel good unless they are in a good position that they want to be in, if they're doing what they want to do. And on an internal level, the Aries is always coming up with new ideas and new things they want to attack in life. So yeah.
So that's just like a kind of a basic example of how two different signs will manifest really differently
Right.
in people.
Mm-hmm.
And you kept it really simple, just keeping it with one sign for the two big positions. You also call this your cosmic DNA, which is kind of cool. It's
Right.
like the idea of DNA being the hard coding that makes up your body. You can still build some muscle, like it's not going to decide like, and you can still like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, do your facial hair how you want, cut your hair. There's certain things that you'll be able, and then also your personality traits can, like, a lot of them are tied in with your DNA and stuff, your physical DNA. So it's like there is some hard coding, but then there's flexibility around that hard coding. And I feel like that's the same with the astrology. Like, you're going to have some tendencies that are based on the astrological positions of the planets during your birth and what's going on in the universe, but you still have that element of free will, and you still have areas to play with and how you interpret those feelings and those impulses.
Definitely. And that's what makes astrology so beautiful. Like, as a Pisces, like, I'm super sensitive, right? I'm more sensitive. I'm probably Cancer and Pisces, probably, Scorpio's in there. All the water signs are super sensitive. So once I realized how sensitive I was, right? It's not that I'm soft or I'm an emotional and I'm not supposed to be emotional. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that
Mm,
my cosmic DNA says I'm a very sensitive being. I'm going to be sensitive to the vibes of the energies around me. So
yeah.
once I discovered that about my cosmic DNA, then I accepted the fact that I'm a sensitive being. B, I was able to, let things hurt my sensitivity, but not act on it as much because I know better. I know that I'm sometimes a little bit more sensitive, and that's the power of astrology. All because, I have a sensitive sign doesn't mean I have to be running around and just acting as sensitive everywhere. And that's the power of astrology. If you know you're an Aries and you're super compulsive, maybe now that you know that's just part of your cosmic DNA, you're not going to be as compulsive anymore. You see?
Yeah. Now, at least you'd be aware of it, that it's like, there's kind of like, for me, it helped create the separation between, like, what, like, who I am and, like, how I, like, those impulses. I don't know. It kind of, like, separated, like, oh, just because I feel sensitive doesn't mean, like, that has to be part of me. I don't know how to explain it. Like, there's a core me inside deeper than all this stuff, and astrology is like that second layer. That's the
Mm,
metaphysical DNA, is just like right on top of the authentic self. So it's really deep and it's
mm,
very true to who I am, but at the same time, it's still like I've been given sensitivity, like you're saying. It wasn't really a choice on my side. So I
right.
can kind of when I feel like I'm being hurt from because I'm sensitive about something, because like I said, I'm Cancer and they're sensitive too, then I'm just like, oh, okay, that's just my like natural reaction. I don't actually have to take it personally, or I don't actually have to like internalize it as like, this is my truth, this is real, like this is who I am, and if I ignore it, then I will like, or whatever,
Right.
It just gives more, almost like opens up the door to more options. You can see
Exactly.
it more clearly, and now you just, all right, now I can make choices more effectively. And just to wrap this section up, what you put in the notes was self-awareness, acceptance, alignment. I love that. That could be like the 3-step plan for just personal development on any level. You got to be aware of yourself. You got to be aware of the things in an objective way. Then you have to kind of accept it, because it is really hard to change something before you accept it. I don't know why, but that's been my experience. Do you have a reason why for that, or do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, you definitely have to be aware of everything out here. The more aware you are, the better you can navigate life. The moment I became aware of my cosmic DNA, everything changed. Like, I stopped caring that I was sensitive, and I don't care if someone thinks that, oh, Jason, you're being sensitive, because I know I am. You see what I mean? I accept that part of me. So now,
Yeah.
so now that I accepted that and I love myself for it, there's nothing wrong with it. I can put myself in alignment. So now I know, what type of person I can deal with and what kind of person I can't deal with. And if someone can't respect that side of me, then I know that that's just not the right person for me. So I can align myself better in the world. You see?
That's beautiful. That's really clean and simple. I like that a lot. We might have to do a whole episode just on those three, that like little
I love that.
little
Yeah.
chunk, because that's like, I feel like there's a lot of depth and like healing and growth that people could
So much
benefit
healing.
from.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then moving on to the second use for astrology is understanding the current cosmic energetic transits. So let's see, you said the web definition of astrological transits involves a method of interpreting the ongoing movements of the planets as they transit the horoscope. So basically the movements of the astral bodies. And so understanding these energetic transits, what's that going to do for you?
All right. So let me do an example. So name any sign.
Let's go Cancer.
Okay. So right now, the sun is in Cancer, right? Or the sun is in Taurus, right? So for a Cancer person, let's see, that would be the 11th house, right? So and I know you guys don't. Yeah, but basically, a Cancer is a very watery, emotional sign. Very watery, very emotional. The moon's always moving. Taurus is, and let me say this: Cancer is ruled by the moon. Okay. The moon does best in Taurus because Taurus is fixed earth. It's the element of earth. It's the fixed version, meaning it's the solid foundation. It's very stable. It's the slow moving bull, and it's focused and is determined. Right. So as a Cancer person, when the sun is in Taurus, you're going to be looking to feel more grounded. You're going to be like, oh, I got to ground these emotions. Oh, I gotta stay focused. I got to be practical right now. You see? So as an emotional Cancer, the sun's in Taurus saying, don't be emotional right now. Be grounded, be practical, be stable, be consistent. You see? So you have to understand that about the transits, right?
Wait, so can we do one more? So I get that, but now I'm wondering, like, let's say we already talked about Libra, so people know what that sign's about. What about Libra when the sun is in Taurus? How would that be different or similar to Cancer?
Okay, so remember the Libra. See, the Cancer cares a lot about the emotions. They're on the vibrational side of life, right? The Libra's on the intellect. The Libra is about the relationship. The Libras are not nearly as emotional as the Cancer, right? So when the sun and Libra is ruled by Venus, so each sign is ruled by a planet, and Taurus is also ruled by Venus. So Taurus and Libras are kind of related, even though they don't really match. They do match because they come from the Venus. Okay, so right off the rip, if you're a Libra and it's Taurus season, you're going to be more into your relationships at this point because Venus is at home in Taurus and cares about relationships. You're going to be more into your relationships. But what you're going to be trying to do is you're going to be trying to get more practical, trying to be more grounded, try to be more consistent and stable with relationships because Libras care about relationships. You
Oh.
see what I'm saying?
So you're gonna bring, okay, that explains, so that really clarifies. You're gonna,
Mm,
that Taurus is gonna bring that grounding energy to whatever your sun sign is. So
right.
whatever needs grounding in your sign, for instance, Cancers need grounding in emotion because that's where they have a lot of energy,
Mm,
while Libras need grounding in relationships because that's where they have a lot of energy.
right.
Um, so there's that similar grounding energy. It'll just apply differently based on, and it also sounds like the fact that like Taurus and Venus are the same ruled, or Taurus and Libra are both ruled by Venus. That's what you
Correct.
said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that means that maybe Libra will be like even more affected by Taurus or by the sun being
Exactly.
in Taurus.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yep.
That makes sense because also like Cancers, it's hard for. I mean, I don't know. Or I'll just speak for myself. It's hard for me to ground sometimes. You
Right.
know, even though I
Mm-hmm.
know I need it, and it's like, but I could see that like maybe for a Libra in this season that wouldn't be an issue. Their emotions
Exactly.
wouldn't be like mess. You know, they would. Okay, that makes
And
a lot of sense.
and
Cool.
lucky for us, Taurus is a very stable energy. That's why the moon does best there. So we're talking. This is a very positive. The sun being in Taurus is pretty positive for most people.
Okay.
Um, but let's say the sun was in. Give me another sign because I want to give them
Okay.
perspective on how it could
Yeah.
change. Or no, better yet,
Hmm.
let's talk about Venus right now because I feel like a lot of people care about Venus in astrology. Okay.
Okay.
Venus is in Aries right now. Okay. Venus is the relationship sign, but Aries is the self sign. All right. So right off the rip, if we know Venus is transiting Aries, we know people are going to be a little bit more selfish about what they want inside of relationships than normal. We know that people are going to be really focusing
Hmm.
on who they are on from their heart because Venus deals with the heart a lot, and then Aries deals with self, right? So this is a time for everyone where people are going to be deep into what they want on from their heart and what they just want deep desire wise, right? So Venus rules love. Venus being in the self sign instead of the relationship sign and if people know this, we know this is a time where Venus might turn up, where relationships might end because people are looking at relationships now and saying this is not what I want because that's what Venus is doing in Aries.
Oh,
So I know,
interesting.
right? So if I know that Venus is in Aries, right, and let's say I was in a relationship, then I know that I'm definitely going to be listening to my girlfriend at this time because if she says she's not happy right now, she means that. You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
And if you
that's
don't,
interesting because
yeah,
in another, if there was another thing, like if you're, I don't know, I'm trying to think. See, my astrology is not as strong as yours, but basically, if your girlfriend had a sign where it was like something was happening astrologically, that's just making her more emotional or like confused energies or ungrounded. Maybe if she said in that time, like that there was a issue with the relationship, then you could be like a little more dismissive, be like, oh, this is just gonna pass. I just have to make sure she feels all right. But
right,
then what you're saying now with Venus in Aries, bringing out like what you truly want in love, if
right.
she says the same thing right now,
It's
then
a whole
that's
nother
take it.
situation.
It's a whole other situation because it's coming from a deeper, truer place.
Right. And
Interest. That's great explanation of how astrology can like
right.
take the same situation and with that astrological knowledge, you'd have a different way of navigating. You could be wiser about things.
Right, and let me emphasize a little bit more on that because Venus is in Aries right now. And it's going to be there for a minute, and it has been in there for a minute. So I know a lot of people have been
Okay.
experiencing some turn ups with their relationships. A lot of people probably
Hmm.
have been breaking up. Watch your girl, watch your guy at this time because this is an energy where Venus will get what it wants if it's not getting it from you, right?
Now, what about the other side? If you're not in a relationship, what does that energy do?
If you're not in a relationship, and Venus is not just about relationships, but it's about like what you love, what you really want to indulge in, what your heart
Huh.
wants. So like
Okay.
if you're not in a relationship and you really want to be in a relationship, then you're gonna be really wanting a relationship at this time.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And you're also gonna be a little bit more stubborn on how you want to see that relationship. And then if you're and
Like
if you
very
don't
idealistic, basically.
right
Like
and
you'll know what you want and you'll want that exact thing kind of thing versus
mhm.
that
and
clarity. Okay.
And yeah, and to think and to talk about more on Venus and Aries. Aries is actually the ultimate competitor. Is the Aries rules war, like the god of Aries rules war. So during this time, like people are fighting with people. So if your girl's like, yo, I'm not happy, she's going to like fight you on it. You see what I mean? Now, let's say Venus was in the opposite sign of Aries and Venus was at home in Libra. Your girlfriend says she's not happy. Well, she may say that, but she's willing to compromise. She's willing to find that balance. She's trying to harmonize with you. You see what I'm saying? So
Okay.
she most likely won't leave you during Libra season. She'll just try to figure out how to make it a balanced situation, especially with the sun being in Taurus, trying to stabilize things. You see what I'm saying? So it all matters.
Oh,
It all matters
yeah.
because
It
Taurus
all
is,
matters.
yeah.
See, that's a tricky part, and I can see why people like go to astrologers. See, I'm always a fan of learn something yourself so that you're not dependent on anyone, and also so that you can have like much deeper insights, which is like what I'm trying to do with astrology. But like what you're saying here is like eventually I hope to get to that place, but it's like, like, okay, you told me this whole thing that's going on over here with Venus and Aries. But then also you got to think about what the sun's doing. That's going to affect that. And like, oh, also the moon's doing something. Like everything's doing something, and they're all playing together. Which is one of the things that actually made me more like a believer in astrology and stuff. Was when I realized how complex and how nuanced it really is. Because like that's the world. Like everything in the world has a lot of complexity and nuance, but also a lot of order and systematic, which is true of astrology too. It's very orderly and systematic. Like you can look at that little circle, see all the dots flying everywhere, and if you know what's going on, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and oh, that's a blah blah blah, and it's all pretty scientific, based on the movement of the planets, based on like that kind of stuff, and there's consistency within it, but yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
It's definitely a decent amount.
Yeah.
So, you know what? We were going to start talking about how to interpret astrology, which basically goes into the big four, the houses, the signs, which we talked about a little bit. So, the houses we haven't talked about. The signs are stuff like Aries, Cancer, Gemini, Leo, all those guys. And then the elements we talked a little bit about, and the planets. So, it's the house systems, the houses, the signs, the elements, and the planets. I don't think we're going to get into this right now. I think this is going to be a two-parter.
Yeah.
Are you feeling that?
Oh yeah. Because I want to go deeper into this.
Yeah, exactly. Like each one of those 4 sections is going to require a decent amount of explanation and some examples. I really like the examples you're giving because that really drives things home. Like in a way that I feel like you can understand even if you don't know all the planets and stuff like that. So I don't know if you want to talk about, because you were going to talk a little bit about how you put the 4 pieces of astrology together to do like a reading, but we haven't gotten into that yet. Is there anything about like what we've talked about so far? So if someone was to approach you at the Blue Moon of Neptune, on Instagram, just at the Blue Moon of Neptune, you can DM him and stuff. He does astrological readings, and like just based on like the stuff we've talked about now, what kind of stuff would you like talk to people about? Like what's the benefit of it? How does it go? Is it just a conversation? Is there something more to it?
Yeah, so every astrologer does their readings differently. But what I like to do, especially for the first one, is do the cosmic DNA. So my job I don't like to call myself an astrologer. I'm a student of the universe, but I study the stars, so I can help people with their stars. But like basically, cool. I take an individual, I look at their chart, right, and we literally diagnose it, right. I tell them about.
So the people are gonna give you their date of birth and their place of birth and the time as well, if they know it. Right, if they know their time. If they don't know their time, we can find some other things. We can still look at things, but yeah, if I know your birthday, your time of birth, and the time zone, I can see your whole entire chart, exactly where all the stars were when you first took your first breath out of the womb. And then what we do is we go over it. And my job is to help heal you. My job is to help give you that alignment, give you that awareness so you can have acceptance and then get an alignment. So typically, most of the people I do readings for, they're in a self-discovery phase, right? And by the time they're done talking to me, the key word I get a lot is clarity. I have so much more clarity because once you really understand thyself, everything changes. Everything changes. Like I experienced it. So my job is to help you understand yourself so you can accept yourself, which will bring healing, and then you can move forward and get in alignment. And that would be
my main talent in astrology, helping people heal themselves, accept themselves, and get in alignment. But you can also use astrology for many other things. I have people who do current transits that are happening to them every single month. So we go and we say, okay, this coming month, you got this transit happening over here. That's happening. Be careful from this. Be careful of that. Watch this. Ground your energy. Maybe attack that. Maybe do some things in your career. Maybe watch your girlfriend. All that kind of stuff. And I also specialize in I like to call it your superpowers, your abilities, what you're really good at. Doesn't necessarily have to do with career, but what you're really good at, what your talents are. So I'll do reading just about your talents or your superpowers, right? Then I'll do a reading about career. And then what's really cool is you could take two charts, I could take my chart and then I could put it on top of his chart, and then look at how the charts, all the planets, compare, how they interact with each other. That's called a synergy chart. And so you could actually bring healing to relationships when you understand, like, okay, I'm an Aries and she's a Scorpio, so obviously I'm not going to be in my feelings as much, and I might have to be more sensitive towards her feelings. And once you understand that, and then the Scorpio knows that the Aries is always trying to turn up, and once they understand that, you could bring harmony together. So I do family astrology, I do relationships astrology.
Oh.
Yeah, I do it. Children astrology. I do it. You can pretty much see like anything in astrology. So I do most things. But basically, if anyone comes to me about anything, it's a interaction. So I'm not one of those astrologers going to type some things up or do a recording. No, we are going to get on the phone. We're going to talk about your chart. We're going to talk about what you need to talk about. I'm very intuitive, and I see where you need the energy applied to, so you can figure things out. And we diagnose the situation and help you heal and get in alignment.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. And just to add one other thing to that, it's like you said about the conversation. I just wanted to reiterate that versus just getting like a typed up thing. The ability to interact with you, so that it's like, because then like when I first started talking to you and you were explaining this stuff to me, then I could tell you like, oh, this is a specific situation that like you saying this reminds me of, and then I explain the situation and you're like, yeah, well that and that. Ah, okay. But like if I just given the birth chart, I would have just gotten the first thing. I wouldn't have been able to respond to you and say like, that's reminding me of this, and then get an even like more like detailed, in-depth kind of understanding or interpretation.
Exactly.
So I really I love that that's the style or technique or whatever you want to call it.
Thank you.
And the other thing is that's really interesting is like you're saying like you can do it for all sorts of stuff. I mean, well, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you like you were just saying in the beginning of this episode about May 4th, 19th, like there's events, you could do an astrological reading on like an event or something, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, is there any uses for astrology, just briefly, like, because I'm sure this is an in-depth topic too, outside of humans? Like, why would you do an astrological reading on an event? Is there an idea you might...
Outside of humans, I love that.
Like, so the one thing that I'm thinking is like, let's say I was planning an event, like I wanted to put on a party, or I was going to show, present something for my business, and I could choose the date. Would that be a kind of thing where you'd be like, oh, you could look at astrology and be like, oh, it'd probably better do it this month or then this month?
Yeah, like if I'm getting married, I'm not getting married during like Scorpio season. Hell no. Because first of all, Scorpio is water element, so there's no solid ground, right? And then Scorpio rules life and death, transformations, right? So getting married during Scorpio season could end up with a very unstable situation, or more likely unstable, because that's the energy you're going into your marriage with, and then you're going into your marriage with a very transformational energy. So yeah, you could transform in a positive way, but it could also transform in a negative way. A great time to get married would be right now when let's just say Saturn wasn't. Let's say Saturn wasn't retrograde. People who know astrology.
Okay. I was just about to pick up my phone and make a couple calls. Like, yo, anyone want to get married? Because this is.
But let's just say let's pretend we're just talking about the sun sign. The sun's in Taurus, and everything else is straight. This is a great time. This would be a great time to get married because Taurus is a very stubborn, fixed, stable, solid sign. So that's the type of energy you're going to be going into your marriage with. You see? So
I
yes,
see.
planning
And it's
astrology
interesting.
around events could be huge. I mean, I
That
definitely do
is
it.
wow, interesting. So then, like, you could what's it called? Like, if I feel like if you have like an intuitive sense of just like the energies in the world, or just like a decent intuition, or you're kind of like following the flow of the universe, you might just naturally end up picking Taurus season to get married in if you have that like healthy alignment. Or you might like be planning to do it in Scorpio, and then you see things aren't working well. And if you're not like, and then if you're sensitive to those energies, you might be able to notice like, maybe we should move the date. But then like that's very, I feel like, hit and miss.
That would be hit and miss. But
yeah.
a better way, because since that would be like too far out, right? Let's say you are, let's say you're about to throw a party, like you said, right? During Scorpio season, you may feel a little bit. It may feel a little bit more intense. Like the energy around that time is going to feel super intense. You might be deep into your feelings. Things may feel a little unstable, a little rocky, and then you might, if you're in tune with energies, you might say, maybe this isn't the best time for me, right? But then it being Taurus season, meaning it's like the sun is in a Venus sign, so Venus is about love, harmony, fun, what you really love to do. You are going to feel a more energetic, positive energy for the party. You see what I'm saying? People are going to be in more harmony. Yeah. People are going to be more compromised energy. Things are going to feel more solid. The plan may come together better. It's going to feel more grounded. And yeah, if you're in tune with the energies, you're going to be able to navigate like events like that.
Cool. So we'll wrap this up now, but I think that's a nice note to end on, because it's kind of like the sentiment I get if I was just like didn't know much about astrology, but I'm like, wow, this could really, I see that there's something going on here. I would think like maybe just start trusting your intuition a little bit more, like believing that there is like that these kind of, if you feel like an unexpected emotion, or like a little bit like, what's this, maybe give it a little credence, or maybe, contact you and see, hey, I'm feeling a little weird about this. I was wondering if astrology, astrologically, there's anything going on that might. So that's really cool. So we'll wrap up here. If you guys have more questions, there's two things you can do. You can tune into the next episode when we're going to be talking about the house system, the signs, the 4 elements, and the planets, the big 4, which is going to be like, if you really want to learn astrology, this is kind of like the pre-introduction. Like this is just kind of warming you up to the idea and what it is. Next episode, we're going to go into like you'll actually learn stuff, like how to like start thinking about it, and how to start using
interpret it. Yeah, exactly.
And how to interpret it.
Because astrology, I'll leave you guys with this, okay? Astrology is not a religion, okay? It's not a belief.
That was one of my problems. Yeah. I thought it was. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, it's none of that. It's simply the language of the universe. It's another language, okay? So that's all you need to take with you when you're trying to figure out what is astrology. It's a language. And once you understand the universal language, life will be a lot easier to navigate.
Boom. Done.
Everything in existence appears to have an opposite.
It seems to be the fundamental property of the universe that we live in.
But what then is the opposite of reality itself, of existence,
of the universe,
and of everything that our physical senses can discern?
That 50% of what is
just what we're trying to learn more about.
The Metaphysical Podcast Network is your spot to start pioneering the kind of stuff that mystics have been talking about for ages,
and quantum physicists are just starting to discuss. You can learn more and listen in at
Metaphysics Podcast Network. New videos up weekly. Subscribe now.